When a nine-tailed demon arrives in a town dominated by werewolves, a pack of lichen students come together to create a trap to lure and destroy this creature from the underworld. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Teen Wolf, from 2023. One night, while working in a Japanese restaurant, a couple is visited by a shadowy man who claims to be looking for a wooden jar that was used to capture a trickster spirit called Nagatsune. Upon hearing this, all the restaurant's customers draw their weapons and stand up to attack the intruder. At that moment, Hikari runs off with the wooden jug while Liam transforms and attacks the hooded man. After getting rid of the wolf, the stranger goes after the girl and shoots her. Just as the young woman is about to be eliminated, Liam appears and attacks the enemy, but is also shot. After defeating the couple, the man takes the jar and decides to make a deal with the spirit. It promises to free him, but in return Nagatsune will have to help him get his long-awaited revenge. After accepting the deal, the evil spirit is released in the form of a firefly and invades the body of its new host. Months later, Scott McCall, who now lives in Los Angeles, answers the call of the fire department and enters an abandoned building to rescue a frightened dog that has bitten all the men who have tried to approach it. With his animalistic gaze, Scott manages to calm Cooper down and helps Alicia out of there before she is crushed by the rubble. While holding the walls, the Wolfman transforms and manages to escape unharmed with the dog. After being rescued, the girl meets her parents again and is attended to by paramedics. When he realizes that Cooper has an injured paw, Scott takes him to the animal shelter where he works and helps to bandage it. He then claims that the dog bit the lieutenant to protect Alicia, because he didn't know if the man posed any threat to the girl. When the family leaves, Alan asks Scott to close the store, but the young man suddenly notices the presence of an intruder. While investigating the site, he comes across Chris and is happy to see his old friend again after so many years. Immediately, the man reveals the reason for his visit and says that lately he has been having countless dreams and visions about Allison. In all of them, his daughter was crying and in deep distress, which left Chris deeply agonized. Upon hearing this, Scott reveals that he is also going through this, and they both come to the conclusion that Allison is stuck in a limbo between worlds. However, 15 years have passed since the young woman left, so Chris asks Scott to accompany him to Beacon Hills to help him find some answers. According to him, there is a ritual that needs to be performed on the next full moon so that Allison can be brought back. Even after so long since her friend's perishment, Lydia is also haunted by memories of the day Allison was eliminated and begins to draw pictures on various sheets of paper while she is embodied by the young woman's spirit. The next day, Eli steals his father's Jeep and, when he finds out what happened, Derek doesn't think twice about going after him. While the young man was stopped at a traffic light, Derek appeared and used his claws to puncture one of the tires. That afternoon, Scott and Lydia meet in Beacon Hills to begin the ritual. After picking up a handful of dirt from the ground where Allison perished, the pair go to meet Chris and Jackson to try to unravel the puzzle contained in Lydia's drawings. After putting all the pieces together, the group comes across the word Bardo together with an image of a tree trunk in a forest called Nemeton. After this discovery, Lydia and Scott arrange to meet Malia in the woods and the trio set off in search of the cut log. Meanwhile, Alan Deaton arrives in town to have a chat with Chris and starts playing some charades to test his theory. Even though Chris tries to stop answering them, he can't because he's under the influence of Nagatsune, the trickster spirit who forces him to attack Alan. After disarming him, Alan throws a substance that expels the demon from Chris's body and the firefly manages to escape. At that moment, while walking through the woods, Scott realizes that he is being followed by Eli and almost doesn't recognize the young man, as the youngster was only 3 years old the last time they saw each other. When he finds out that the group is looking for a felled tree trunk, Eli claims to know its location and offers to take them there. At dusk, the team manages to reach the site and Malia asks the young man to leave before they begin the ritual. Lydia then picks up the sword that was used to pierce Allison's abdomen while Scott holds the sand he collected from the place where the young woman was eliminated. Just then, a strong whirlwind begins to form, causing the sword to land in the center of the trunk. Soon after, both the sword and the grains of sand are sucked into the earth. After that, nothing else happens and the trio comes to the conclusion that the ritual was a big failure. However, just as they were about to leave, a luminous sap began to emerge from inside the trunk, at which point Scott came across Allison's body. Seeing the young woman unconscious, the trio immediately rush to the car and take her straight to the city hospital, where Scott's mother works. While Allison is being attended to by Dr. Melissa, a group of fireflies invade the cracks left in the trunk, so Nagatsune manages to materialize and steal the sword. After analyzing the girl's vital signs, the doctor says there is nothing wrong with her and now the next step is to wait for her to wake up to see if this is the real Allison or another spirit inhabiting her body. While listening to Melissa's instructions, Scott looks into the bedroom and realizes that Allison has disappeared. Terrified and haunted by her memories, Allison steals some clothes from the staff locker and tries to escape, but is captured by Malia. When she tries to hold her back, the young woman ends up being knocked to the ground and Allison manages to escape. However, when two guards show up to surround her, she doesn't think twice before using her fighting skills to attack them and manages to take down both men single-handedly. At that moment, Scott manages to reach her and, while trying to hold the girl, he ends up being injured with a pair of scissors. When she sees the wound healing immediately, Allison realizes that this guy is a werewolf, but she can't remember him. So she asks where Derek Hale is and tries to escape once again. When she arrives on the second floor of the hospital, Allison sees her father, but she can't recognize him either and runs out of the building. That night, as the sheriff and his co-workers leave the police station to attend to a fire call, Deputy Ishida realizes that there is an intruder in the station and draws his gun. When questioning Nagatsune, the policeman discovers that he is a kitsune and his brother, Akeda, knew this but never told him. According to the demon, the spirit that lives inside Ishida is ancient and has been drawn to Beacon Hills. At this point, Nagatsune uses his powers to pull out the fox spirit that lives inside him and claims that it is there to steal his 9 tails. After Allison's disappearance, Scott and his friends are worried because they realize that the girl doesn't remember who she is. Her last memory is of being a werewolf hunter, so the team must find Derek before he is eliminated by her, since Allison is after the alpha werewolf. At that moment, the young woman is breaking into a warehouse to gather the weapons she intends to use in the battle and suddenly she hears Nagatsune's voice. She immediately grabs her crossbow to shoot him, but the monster claims to be a friend and assures her that he will help her eliminate Scott McCall, the werewolf who destroyed her family. However, Allison says she doesn't remember that name and is about to shoot Nagatsune when he takes on the form of her mother, who perished many years ago. In this way, the demon manages to convince her to join him and the Oni, who are also interested in eliminating all the werewolves. That night, when they arrive at the police station to talk to the sheriff, Lydia and Jackson find Deputy Ishida lying lifeless next to the cell with his neck completely turned around. After his son's sports match, Derek accompanies him to the locker room because Eli was injured during the game. At that moment, the man sees the perfect opportunity to teach him how to transform into a werewolf, as Eli is the only member of the Hale family to have reached the age of 15 without ever having undergone a transformation. According to Derek, the young man needs to learn to regenerate if he wants to be a wolf, but before he can teach Eli how to do that, Allison shows up and tries to hit them with an arrow. Luckily, the young man manages to duck in time and Derek orders him to flee while he fights the person who tried to eliminate them. During the duel, the Alpha recognizes Allison and tries to understand why he is being attacked by her. After throwing his opponent away, Derek decides to run and ends up being hit by an arrow, which pierces his neck. At that moment, the man falls to the ground and drags himself through the school corridors as Allison approaches to finish the job. Just as she was about to fire the last shot, Liam and Hikari showed up to stop her, so Allison decided to run away. Then Scott and Malia arrive on the scene and try to help Derek. However, the man has already lost a lot of blood and can no longer regenerate, so he asks Scott to go after Eli and says that the young man will know what to do. When Derek collapses, Liam reveals that Nagatsune and the Oni are on their way to Beacon Hills, so Scott asks him to contact Stilinski for help. At the moment, the sheriff and his men are leading an operation to investigate the cause of the numerous fires that are raging around the town. Suddenly, Stilinski realizes that Parrish and the other policemen have disappeared and begins to hear strange noises coming from the forest. Immediately, the sheriff grabs his pistol and starts shooting at Nagatsune. While the demon attacks his target, his allies go after the other policemen and Michael is struck several times by a sword. During the attack, the policeman manages to escape and asks Mason for help, but ends up being eliminated right in front of his co-worker, who is also attacked soon after. Seeing his team in danger, the sheriff starts shooting, but his shots have no effect on the onus. Just as he was about to be eliminated, Jordan Parrish appears and uses his powers to hold off those monsters while the sheriff flees. Arriving at Melissa's house, Derek is helped by Alan and the man says that werewolves regenerate more quickly in the presence of fire. So Peter doesn't hesitate to burn his nephew's wound with a blowtorch and, due to the pain, Derek ends up losing consciousness. After checking that Derek will survive, Scott decides to go after Allison alone and asks Malia to find Lydia, as she is the only one who will know what to do. After leaving school, Eli took his father's car to try to escape from Allison, but when he stopped at a gas station to fill up, the young man was found and his vehicle was completely destroyed. Then Allison gets out of the car and goes after him, so Eli decides to hide in a parking lot full of vehicles to try to lose her. When he realizes that the huntress won't give up until she finds him, the young man picks up a tool and tries to attack her, but Allison is an experienced fighter and manages to dodge all his blows. After knocking the young man down with her bow, the young woman prepares to shoot an arrow through Eli's heart, but Scott appears just in time and she decides to change her target. After deflecting the arrow, the young wolf helps Eli escape and teaches him how to activate his werewolf instinct to regenerate. While running through the woods, the pair decide to hide while thinking of a plan of action to stop Allison, and Scott realizes that she has passed a poisonous plant to the werewolves on the tip of her arrows. At that moment, the young man orders Eli to go and meet his father while he tries to get close to Allison to help her recover her lost memories. Arriving at the police station, Liam and Hikari meet Lydia and Jackson. Upon seeing Ishida's body, Hikari soon realizes that he was a kitsune and was eliminated to have his tails stolen. After running for a few minutes, Eli reaches the road and is almost run over by Sheriff Stilinski, who decides to help the young man find his father. Suddenly, 3 Onus invade Melissa's house and the group must prepare for battle. Meanwhile, Liam and Hikari are on the road looking for Scott and have to stop halfway because one of the car's tires has gone flat. Analyzing the tear in the tire, the couple soon realize that it was caused by a sword, and then 3 other Onus appear to attack them. During the battle, both Liam and Hikari are pierced by the demon's swords and say goodbye to each other before their bodies go up in smoke. Meanwhile, a battle takes place at Melissa's house and Sheriff Stilinski is also turned into ashes. During the duel, Alan is struck by the demon's sword and disappears. Seeing his friends being eliminated right in front of him, Derek is furious and channels all his anger into defeating the Onus. However, just when the werewolf thinks he has gotten rid of them all, a new enemy approaches and attacks him from behind. That night, Eli witnesses his father's perishment and is about to suffer the same fate as him when Malia appears and drags the young man into the basement. When he is surrounded, Eli decides to unleash his animal instinct and tries to attack the Onus, but ends up being easily eliminated. When she realizes that the sun is rising, Malia removes the curtains from the window and the light makes the dark spirits disappear. At that moment, Scott is fighting Allison on the edge of a cliff and trying to make her remember everything they lived through together. However, the young woman refuses to listen to him, so Scott allows Allison to pierce his abdomen with a dagger and then manages to convince her to listen to what he has to say. After almost being eliminated by the demons, Malia arrives at the police station and finds Lydia. At that moment, she discovers that weapons made of silver are the only ones capable of eliminating the Oni. So the young woman enlists Parrish's help to find as much silver as possible while Lydia continues her investigation to find out who is setting fire to the forest. After hitting Scott with a dagger poisoned with the plant, Allison takes him to a warehouse so that he can serve as bait to attract the other werewolves. Seeing the young wolf unconscious, the huntress begins to wonder if she is doing the right thing, and then Nagatsune appears pretending to be her mother to implant new ideas in her mind. Meanwhile, Eli and all the others who were hit by the Oni wake up in a forest and the young man is surprised to discover that he has not perished. The truth is that both he and his friends are trapped inside an illusion created by demons. When he wakes up, Scott starts a conversation with Allison and tries to convince the girl that they are not enemies. To prove he's telling the truth, he shows her the photo he's kept in his wallet for the last 15 years and Allison is surprised to discover that they used to be boyfriend and girlfriend. After recovering some of her memories, Allison decides to save Scott and uses a flare to burn his wound. That way, he can regenerate faster. When Scott recovers, Allison decides to go after her father, because if what her boyfriend said is true, Chris is also in danger. That morning, Eli's team's championship is taking place, so Nagatsune decides to invade the illusion in which his victims are trapped and sends the young man onto the field. When he gets there, he meets Scott and reveals Nagatsune's plans to destroy the school. Immediately, the pair go to talk to Coach Finstock and discover that the only way to get those people out of the stadium without causing a panic is to win that game. In the course of the investigation, Lydia discovers that the arsonist in the forest is the same man who attacked Liam and Hikari in Japan to steal the jar, and he plans to use the ashes from the trees to open a portal between two worlds. Just then, Adrian Harris appears in the school gymnasium and uses a gun to take Lydia and Jackson prisoner. When he finds Allison, Peter attacks her because he is convinced that she is possessed by an evil spirit. However, just as he is about to remove the young woman's throat with his claws, Chris appears and throws a poisoned dagger at him. At that moment, Peter ends up being wounded and Allison takes the opportunity to strike him. She then runs to hug her father and sees a dark mist approaching. As she walks towards him, the young woman ends up being dragged into the illusion created by the Onus, where she meets Scott and Eli. While Allison and Scott fight the demons, Eli races to free his father and Adrian forces Lydia to watch her best friend being cornered. When the young woman is about to be eliminated by the onus, Lydia decides to use her powers to help her and, with a single banshee scream, manages to get rid of them all. When she hears her friend's voice, Allison starts to recover her memories and remembers all the moments she had with Lydia and Scott. Just then, Nagatsune appears and says that he will eliminate all of Scott's friends, unless Allison is able to finish her job and eliminate her great love with an arrow through the heart. However, now that she has recovered her memory, the young woman refuses to sacrifice Scott, but the young man begs her to do so because he doesn't want to see anyone else he loves eliminated. So Allison decides to fulfill his request and, with tears in her eyes, shoots 3 arrows into Scott's heart. Believing he had won the game, Nagatsune makes the onus disappear. What he doesn't realize is that Hikari has sent the fox flame to protect her friend and, after saving Scott's life, the fox returns to the young woman's body. At that moment, Allison shoots an arrow at the demon's head, but is unable to hurt it. Immediately, the onus return to finish the battle, but Parrish and the rest of the team manage to break through the illusion to support their friends in the final war. This time, they are prepared for battle and use silver weapons to eliminate those demons. When he realizes that the war is lost, Nagatsune decides to flee and Eli enlists his father's help to transform himself into a werewolf, so that he will be strong enough to free his friends. Thanks to the bite he received from Scott, Nagatsune manages to transform into a werewolf and challenges the other wolves to a duel. While trying to attack him, Scott, Eli and Derek are sent to another plane and trapped in a new illusion. In an attempt to weaken them, the demon traps each of his opponents in a room so that he can attack them separately. Realizing that they won't be able to stop their enemy on their own, the trio decide to start roaring, as this way they will be able to locate each other and break the illusion. Together, the werewolves capture Nagatsune and begin to beat him. When the illusion is shattered, they appear in the woods and Parrish says that the only way to eliminate the demon is to trap him back inside that log. Knowing that he will be burned alive if he does this, Derek states that from now on Scott is the alpha and asks him to accept Eli into his pack. The man then throws his friend off the log and orders Parrish to use the flames of hell to burn the demon. In doing so, Parrish manages to seal Nagatsune back into the trunk, but the werewolf ends up being eliminated along with him. After Derek's noble sacrifice, the group is sent back to the stadium and Scott finally has the chance to kiss Allison again after so many years. He then sees Eli's suffering and approaches him to console him, as the young man has just lost his father. The next day, the group holds a farewell ceremony for Derek and Sheriff Stilinski decides to give Eli the jeep that belonged to his father. According to him, Derek not only perished like a hero, but also lived like one, because he always dedicated his life to protecting all those he loved, even if he had to suffer to do so. A few days later, Alan and Scott return to Los Angeles, where they dedicate themselves to their work at the animal shelter. This time, however, they have company, as Allison and Eli have decided to move to the city. As for Adrian Harris, after all the harm he has done to the town of Beacon Hills, he suffers a fate worse than going to jail, as he is sent to Icon House, a home for patients with mental disorders. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.